Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day and welcome to an extremely lit video. Today, I got some exclusive, never before seen information just for y'all. What am I talking about? I'm talking about 3 new Lemuria spells that are coming, 2 of which that have been leaked and 1 that you'll see exclusively here. And there's also some explanations for the spells that have been given to me by Ratbeard himself. If you guys do not know who Ratbeard is, I'm gonna link his Twitch in the description. He's a developer. He works on Wiz. He will give you his thought process. Without further ado, let's get right in to the 3 new Lemuria spells that we suddenly know about all of a sudden. The first one is the death spell. Now, this one has never been seen before. It's called Putrefaction. Now, this one's really cool because what it does is that it essentially takes blades that your opponent has on themselves and then it just converts them into weaknesses. That is a gigantic deal because right now there seems to be a really big deal with death and weaknesses. We've seen that with Snack Attack. We've seen that also even more recently with Monster Mash. We've seen that they seem to really do well when weaknesses are a thing. Now, if you could convert blades into weaknesses, Monster Mash becomes a crazy good ability because you're literally making a blade not good and you're making your Monster Mash more powerful. Now, I'm sure you guys are wondering, what does this card even really mean? It just says convert blades to weakness. So basically, according to the information that I've been given, it converts blades and basically each blade that it converts to a minus 25 weakness. Now, that is a gigantic deal because a 25 weakness can also just be, you know, you can literally put another weakness on if you really wanted. You could use wings. You could actually use like a whatchamacallit, a Snag Attack maybe, or even a Winged Sorrow, and you can make the weakness stacking insane. So if you're going against the death, it is definitely not going to be in your best interest to ever even consider blading unless you're going to use it very quickly or you're not using more than 2. Even using 2, I would argue, is a very bad idea. So there needs to be other strategies you do against death. So death can actually fall in to what it does very well, which it can tank with weaknesses and then drain to get some health back every time you hit. So death could become a lot better when blades become much worse. So this is the one that I think is going to be absolutely insane, but there are 2 other ones that were leaked, and I also have some information about those just for you guys. Now, the life one is the one that you see on the screen right now. This one is called Tranquility, and I'm equally hype about this one. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, man. So what it does is basically if you have traps on you, it converts those traps into heal over time. Now, this is a gigantic deal because right now, let's say that you are a life and someone decides to trap into the trap against you like crazy, you don't have a lot of options. You have to Aegis a shield because of, you know, the 2-pip Shatter pet, the infamous one. You have to Aegis some shields, and honestly, because Shatter is so good for 2 pips and it has infinite capabilities on that 2-pip Shatter pet that I'm talking about, these shields will only buy you time. So in order to really beat someone with trap stacks, you have to summon a minion, you have to be able to pacify with Grenadier, and then you have to be able to shield over it during the rounds of pacify. And if your opponent trap stacks enough to the point where they can AoE you, the pacify effect does not work because you're not targeting anybody, right? You're just choosing the card. It hits you and the minion. There are still many big counters to even the most concrete life strats against trap stacking. So this is a gigantic deal. Now, because of the new Enfeebled TC, now life can remove blades to some extent and definitely can really punish traps to some extent. Now, again, I know you guys are wondering, what is the value on, what does this do? Basically, what it does is that for every trap that it converts, it has a different value. So if it converts 1 trap, it heals you for 120 health over 3 rounds. If you convert 2 traps, it's 240 HP over 4 rounds. And if it's 3 traps, then it's 360 over 5 rounds. So this is really important. That means that, let's say that you use something like a fuel, like, you know, a life fuel, a fire fuel, a mythic fuel, those kind of spells where you put many traps at the same time, they're gonna be very bad against life because they can, it's a free heal. As long as they have a shield, it's such a free heal. But more importantly, let's say that you're going beyond the spirit traps and the fuel traps, right? If you're doing like a bunch of single traps, like a lot of trap stack strategies do, a bunch of death traps into the life trap, and you know, like those, that's just not gonna work. You have to have such a small die for those things to work, and it's so easy literally to basically say no. Like, you know, you just use the card. That strategy doesn't work. As long as people carry enough of these cards, trap stacking for against life and blade stacking against death, just based on the examples we've been given, just simply will not work well anymore. Now, I'm sure people are asking, why is it that, you know, for depending on the number of traps, you technically get a little bit less of a heal per round, right? And that's simply because I would assume that you could kind of use it for stalling or abuse. The way that decay works, you're not going to spam it and just like live forever. It's more just very good against very linear strategies, or it could be used as a way to get rid of something like a fuel, like a mythic fuel or something, in a very convenient way so that it's not part of a bigger combo. Speaking of fuels, let's talk about the myth spell, Betrayal. Now, Betrayal, which you see on the screen, basically what it does is it converts shields into traps. Now, that is a really, really big deal because I don't know if y'all know this, but Myth has a pet called a Maple Moose, and basically it gives, just like this Fern Lumi gives 2 life fuels, right? The Maple Moose gives 3 Myth fuel. And when you put on those Myth fuels, you basically set up for many, many combos, including a King Art into a Yaga combo, right? Where you have the first 2 hits of the King Art happen and break a bunch of shields, and then you have a Pierce Blade and a trap left over for the Yaga. Sometimes you have bubble control, sometimes you add blades. It's a very, very good combo. Not to mention that with Myth Fuel, you have stun combos with spells like Myth Banshee, maybe even Medusa, so you have an extra buff after you do a hidden stun. And of course, you also have spells like Mystic that can also use the trap, Minotaur that can break a shield and then hit with the trap. Basically, 3 traps for a Myth are extremely, extremely lit, especially because of their shield removal capabilities, right? They can literally just shatter. Even if you shield 3 times over Myth Fuel, you need Aegises in order for that Myth Fuel to be that bad of a move. So now with this spell that you see on the screen, it begs the question, is Myth going to be even more powerful than before? I think it depends on how it works, right? Like, let's say that I have, for example, an Aegis on a shield. Would this never work? That means that Aegises are going to be even more important than before. And once again, the value of the trap becomes very, very important. Is it going to be something that's game-changing? Like, you know, like one of these like, you know, Fern Lumi things, which is 35% on 3 different traps, which is literally insane in this current meta? Or is it maybe based on how good your shield is, right? Like, for example, right, a lot of people that counter Myth, especially because of Mystic, they'll carry not Legend Shield, which, you know, they might carry Legend Shield like I am. You would want to Aegis these if you're going to use these, because it's totally a waste if you're going to get Mystic through one of these anyways. But really what you'll notice is a lot of them will actually carry Spirit Shields, or just stack a bunch of towers, because that's a lot easier to do than pull a bunch of Aegises and Legend Shields, right? So maybe this is based on the value of the shield. I don't know. I have no idea. Based on the spell description, all it says is that it converts somewhat. So we don't know. If we're looking at Camp Bandit, then it specifies. That spell actually specifies that there's a value of the trap that it converts over. We don't have a specification on this specific spell. So who knows? Maybe if you do a 70 shield, it'll be a 35 trap. But if you do a 50 shield, it'll be a 25 trap. Or maybe it'll be not half. Maybe it'll be less. We really, really don't know. Depending on how massive of a conversion it is, this could make something like a trap stack Myth strategy way better than anything else that Myth has right now. Especially with the inclusion of Enfeeble, you really aren't going to be able to blade into the blade as much, so you're going to see a lot more trapping when it comes to Myth specifically, because they can play into that identity. Now, I bring up the concept of identity because I think that is very, very important to this conversation. I don't know if y'all have been playing this game for a while, but the last time we had utility-based spells that really worked on someone's school identity was Avalon. And I'll be honest, looking back, I don't think this was a job well done as much as it could have been. The Friar Nolan spells and the spells from the man's in, I don't know, whatever the place is, that place over there, you know, like the little high road, whatever, right? Those 2 spells, they added things to schools that have never been added, and they also broke the hell out of some schools. This was the update. This utility update was the one that made Guardian Spirit spamming a thing. It made Juju spamming a thing, and honestly, it's still the reason why Mana Burn spamming is a thing. My point is that utilities can be spammed quite easily, so I really hope that if they are going to go the utility route, which I'm a huge fan of, I hope that they work on strengthening parts of a school's identity already instead of adding random things. I don't think, like a 90 weakness was really a big part of what Death was all about, and that update made Death really weakness and infection heavy. You've seen spells like Monster Mash that work off of that. It made it something that it really kind of isn't, which it's a drain school, right? It added something, and I feel like that kind of contributed to why it's so not good right now. It also added Snowdrift into the game, which just made Ice just very good against life and balance when they heal, which kind of doesn't make sense. It should be a tank school. There should be no real healing component to schools like Myth and Ice because they've never really had that. It was a weird thing to add. What I'm hoping for is that Myth, Storm, and Fire get offensive utilities. I hope that Life, you know, Ice and Death get defensive utilities, and I hope that they're based somewhat around their school identity. I like that Life has something to do with traps on it, because that's like the one big hole in it, and the fact that it's converted to a heal makes a lot of sense. Maybe Balance will get one that's based on pips, Maybe Death will get one that's based on weaknesses. Maybe Ice will get one that's based on shields. And I really think Storm should get one based on blades. What I certainly hope is that they are more about when you use them and not just the fact that you spam them like the Avalon spells, but based on the descriptions of these spells, they're very situational. If your opponent isn't shield spamming, you're not going to be able to convert any shields, right? If your opponent isn't trapping, you're not really going to be able to convert traps into heals at all. So the fact that you can only use them given a context is met, that's a really, really big deal that I think makes them very different from the Avalon spells, and that's why I'm optimistic about them. I don't think they're just going to be spammed. If anything, they might make schools a little bit better depending on how you play against them, and it's going to affect how you play against schools. If you know that a life wizard can convert a bunch of traps into heals, you should not be actively trap stacking against them, right? That shouldn't be in your mind, because all it takes is them packing a 2 or 3 of them, and not only are they getting rid of your pips that you're using for traps, they're also healing like crazy. If this is a pattern that the future update is gonna uphold, especially with the fact that Shatter and Enfeeble are now TCs, we might see an end to PvE strats for the foreseeable future, because yes, Enfeeble doesn't completely counter Blade Stack, but it does work. And if there are utilities against trap stackers for schools that have nothing, like Ice, like Life, like Balance, like Death, maybe even Fire, if those schools start having utilities that can really punish people who just stack a bunch of buffs, then we're in business. Then we're gonna see back and forth that really makes PvP what it's all about, which is making good moves. Not just making the same move over and over again, making good moves depending on what your opponent does. I'm really excited about this change. I will say this, I'm really grateful that Life got something that actually like will work for them. I'm kind of surprised that Myth got almost like an extra mythic feel almost, which seems a little overpowered to me, but also I guess you technically don't have to not Aegis a shield, or you could maybe even, like, depending on how the convert happens, maybe you don't have to do strong shields. There's shields that can't be pierced into a hit like with a Mystic. Y'all, if there's any other leaks, I will be putting it out, so make sure you drop a sub and turn on noties. I want to hear y'all's opinion. You guys think that every school is going to get a cool spell like this, and you think every school needs a spell like this? What spells are y'all trying to see for your school? Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a sub if you're new, and as always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. I look forward to reading y'all's comments, and stay awesome. And yeah.